Start recording. Testing, testing. Got my podcast blanket on.
I wish I had a podcast blanket.
You don't. It gets so hot, Michael. I have to shower after each recording.
That's all the sin coming out.
We
I'm
found our opener.
I'm the sweatiest little guy after each recording. It's disgusting.
Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
This week, we visit a parallel episode, one that is both like and unlike our last, with Season 1 of the HBO Max TV series His Dark Materials. Before we have a conversation with minimal meddling from our producers, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys. Well, we're here.
We're back, baby.
This was like a breath of fresh air, and Nicole Kidman wasn't even in it.
I was gonna say it's gonna be hard to beat, missing Miss Kidman, but somehow I do feel like this was a better product than the last one.
Yeah,
I have to agree.
I like that we're talking about, like, man, I can't believe they beat the highs. The incredible highs of the dog shit, confusing, weird mess that was that fucking movie. I actually like this. Overall, I think this is decent.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought too. Like, I think we are, going to be a little bit, have a less positive reaction because we watched The Golden Compass so recently. So a lot of, like, the first half especially was very new, or not new, but familiar to us. So take that with a grain of salt, listeners. We maybe are not going to like it as much as we would have if we had so much time between it. But, I think overall, like, thumbs up, we would say, for this adaptation.
And can I say, I actually fully disagree with that. I think,
Boy.
You thought this was worse?
no, I
Oh, okay.
thought that, like, after I watched this in two chunks, and this is a very on-brand thing of me that I watched this in two different sittings on two different days, rather than spacing it out over the course of 2 weeks, listeners. Yes, that is true. That is how I consume media. So I watched the first 4 episodes and then watched the last 4 episodes. And I left the first 4 saying, on paper, this is a B- show at best. And I am enjoying it like it is an A+ show because I have it compared in my brain right up against The Golden Compass. Everything I said about it needing space to breathe and room to grow, it's all true. The minute I got that, I was like, this is just so wonderful. I felt like I could just relax in my chair, get comfy, cozy, and settle in for the ride. I didn't feel so confused. And that ends up glossing over a lot of issues I think that were more prevalent in the first half than the second half of the season that we can get into later. But I don't know. I thought the contrast made me like it more.
Can I just explain real quick my experience with both of these two things prior to the podcast?
Sure.
Please.
So, like, as we kind of discussed in the last podcast, this was the forbidden fruit of this is where our family drew the line. So, like, the movies, I was like, man, that girl sure does ride a bear. And then when the show came out, I was really into HBO shows at the time. I just finished Barry. I was Watchmen had just come out not that long ago, which I loved. I was currently watching Lovecraft Country, which is the most wild thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And I was like, you know what? Let me kind of watch this. And I watched the first 4 episodes and then just kind of fell out of it, just because it's not as intense as the other 3 shows I just mentioned. And then, of course, as you guys know, we watched the movie. So I'm like, half of that that entire movie was very familiar, and then I rewatched the show. So I feel like I'm the expert on the first 3 episodes of this fucking show. I know it better than I know some loved ones.
Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do, because we don't want to recap the plot of the Golden Compass movie that we just did our episode over, we're just gonna talk about some conversation points. This is gonna be a little bit more of an analytical piece, but to make it really brief, Lyra is going on her trip to bring the alethiometer, the Golden Compass, to her uncle Azrael in the north. She meets a bunch of people along the way. She saves some people from getting their demons cut away. The main difference in this version, and I think we could maybe start with this, is that we get to see our world. We get to see Will, who shows up in the the subtle knife, I think, or is it the amber spyglass? Either way, he shows up in the second book. Um, but they start seeding him in this first season of the show and showing like what his life is like and who he is. And the other main difference is that, of course, the it ends a little bit later than the movie ends, and that wildly changes the tone. Um,
Boy,
but let's
does
talk
it.
about, yeah, that's going to be one of my talking points. But let's talk about seeing the other world, or rather our world, as opposed to the world of Brightan or whatever the fuck.
This was so. I felt that this made for such a more compelling story because right away, like Lord Azrael, like shows that the dust is forming this like city in the sky. So you're already wondering like, oh, can this go to different dimensions? And we literally watch a dude walk through, like I guess a break in the Matrix. They don't. Do they ever explain why that thing is there? I don't think they do.
What thing?
The break in the like the little in the garden where they can cross worlds. The bad guy with the
At
snake.
the very end.
No, because the dude jumps into our world to track down Will.
Oh, I don't even remember that. But no, I don't believe it's covered.
Yeah, so like one of the bad guys from the Magisterium has like a snake, and he goes into our world, and he has like a Tesla and a lot of parking tickets, and like the just the fact that they show our world and that like it's possible to travel between the two, and I think that adds so much more like intrigue to like what's going on and so much more mystery that is just completely lacking from the movie. Like at no point during the movie was I was like where there were multiple points where I was wondering what is happening. Very few where I was wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I think that like yeah, it is it does add a certain level of being like, okay, there is something interesting going on here. It kind of hints at questions, especially the stuff with Will's like father. I think that that is like I don't know that it gets deployed especially well because it is just a lot of us being told about Will's father,
For
but
sure.
the ways in which we see this guy with the snake, what's his name, Boreal, Lord Boreal, I believe.
Lord Boreal,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah, like basically menacing Will's mom and like trying to trigger her her schizophrenia. Like I mean, it's I don't I don't love to see portrayals of people with mental disorders like being hurt, but like I think it is a pretty respectful portrayal of somebody who does have a mental disorder and is also having that used like wielded against them. I think that is interesting. And it kind of shows like what Will is going for, and I think that's smart, especially because as they planned this as a three season show, it would be very wild to just have Will kind of show up in episode two, which is what happens in the books, which is a very strange tact to take. I forgot so much of how these books go. I can't speak to whether or not Pullman pulls it off successfully. But I do think it's a smart choice to weave in Will's story and show that like, oh yeah, the stuff with the city in the sky, that's not bullshit because we're also getting weird bleed overs. We're seeing Boreal. Like when I like saw Boreal with an iPhone, I was like, oh, that's something. That's weird. And I was very excited to see how it turned out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think that
think that it was necessary to tie him in and tie our world in earlier, just because of the difference in medium, right? Like, I can imagine reading a book series and kind of be fine picking up in a season two with someone else or a book two with someone else and not really being all that perturbed by it. But visual mediums, we just need an introduction. We need to know who we're looking for because if you introduce someone season one Everyone's always going to be like, wait, did I miss an episode? Did HBO not give me their cute little recap before we get our Game of Thrones esque intro credits? What what's going on here? And I'm grateful that we had that. I am kind of ambivalent towards weaving in our world in terms of a storytelling device. I don't know that that makes me more or less into it or out of it. I'm just happy that we had that introduced in season one because I think sometimes it can be a bit of a like ex machina plot device. Like, now we're going to save the world by jumping into an alternate reality. And I really was grateful that we understood, like, okay, this is just something that happens. It's not all that common, but it is in canon universe potentially possible.
They set it up, and because they introduce it as a possibility early, it's not as weird when it comes up later on.
Right.
And
It,
like you said, I think you're right that actually because of the way that this is a TV show, it's way different to as opposed to just like throwing in a new character in the middle of the next season.
I I will say that the fact that they show how easy it is to cross into the other world does make me dislike a character a bit more, and we'll talk about that when we talk about one of Aaron's points. Um, but I don't think that's quite a complaint so much as to say that if it was done with purpose, I think it definitely was effective because boy howdy did it make me a little angry.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we could talk about that point now, which is that I'm just Azrael's plan here, right? Is and it is played out in full, but like I like the ways in which it is more developed, right? They kind of build up to the fact that like okay, there's a city in the sky, Azrael wants to go to it, he needs dust somehow, and they build that out. But like Azrael, he really sucks in this one. Like
Fucking
they
blows.
they didn't hit hard enough in fucking the first Golden Compass, right? That he sucks the moon out of the sky. um, and like I think it makes it such a different. I guess these are both of my points at the same time. The story is so different when they include the ending, which is that Lyra's friend Roger, who is like a 12-year-old boy, like that she had to go and rescue from getting his demon cut away, gets captured by Lord Asriel, and he cuts Roger's demon away, killing him and blowing a hole through space and time into heaven. Um,
He
which
does a
like
fucking human sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, which is like a cool concept, but like they did not set that up at all in the Golden Compass.
No. And so, like, I actually kind of love that inclusion in this, only because it makes Lyra's mother a bit more of a complicated villain. Rather, like, I love Nicole Kidman. I think she chews the scene really well, and she was having the most fun in Golden Compass. But there is something like, I guess mustache twirling about her villain, right? Of like, the religion is great and I love it and it's so simple. And in this, we see a bit more of a nuanced approach to her character, and I think she becomes more interesting when you see, like, oh, Lyra's dad is an asshole too. In fact, he is an asshole in the same ways her mom is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. So specifically, like the way the show sets up the fact that like Azrael is willing to completely do the same thing, which is like murder a child or do grievous damage to a child in order to achieve his goals. Like that is a very compelling thing to mirror Azrael versus Miss Coulter, because like it shows like okay, yeah, no, they are kind of the same, and like it means that like Lyra isn't just going on this straightforward quest to go hang out with her cool dad. It's like oh, Lyra has been dealt a shitty hand from the start, and like oh no, what is she gonna do now? And I think it's really interesting to make that choice.
and I think to kind of build off of what Michael was saying, I find it interesting that their like goals are different, but like they're heading in the same direction of both them trying to build a better society. Because doesn't he say like as after he's murdered the boy, and he's kind of like talking to Coulter and being like, what if we got like back together real quick? Um, he says something about like building a new world together, like a new
Hmm.
Eden, I think was
Hmm.
the thing. And like both of them are like, we are going to build a new, perfect, better world. Big, and only if everyone listened to me, we would get there. And it was that moment where I was like, oh, you both aren't just bad, you're both a little evil.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
and
the
like,
boy murder that did it for me. It was
uh,
that's where I was like, you might be evil.
well, and like, I don't know. I think that like Miss Coulter's cruelty is really well played in this in a way that like Azrael's cruelty is a bit more masked, and I don't know. In in the movie, it was really easy to be like, "Oh, dad's so cool. He's off on an adventure, and mom's such a bitch. She just likes rules in church." Like
Yeah.
it was kind of reductive, and I don't think like I would have even made that jump had I not watched this and seen how that story was going to go. Because can you imagine this being how we open?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about because, like, what were they thinking about
Yeah.
not including this in the Golden Compass? Because then they're like, oh, if we make a sequel, we'll just start Act One with fucking Roger dying.
Yeah.
We'll begin with a simple boy murder, and that's our, and then we roll the fucking rest of the movie. It's
Which, like,
baffling.
you could use that as an inciting incident, I guess, but like, it sets such a different tone. And like it changes the way the narrative rolls completely because in the Golden Compass, like you're saying, Michael, it's like a fun romp. Like, oh, I have to escape my mean mom who works for the church to hang out with my cool dad. We're gonna have a big battle. Here, the battle at Bolvangar is, mentioned. It's there and it's interesting, but like, it's not a fucking 40-minute action sequence. Right? Even like there's a very cool shot of like the fucking steampunk airships like coming over the mountain and like shooting guns at the bears, and the bears are shooting back, and that rules. I love
The
to see
bears have cannons. The bears have
the
cannons. They still have cannons. What the
the
fuck?
bears have artillery, and that kicks ass. And I'm very happy about that. But like, they
Aw.
didn't spend more than a minute on it, and like there was a cool combat sequence, and like that was it. And I think that was like largely fine. Like, yeah, I got to see the cool fight scene, but like, that's not really what the story's about. And they didn't linger on things that the story wasn't about, which and it's just I don't understand what they wanted in the Golden Compass movie to be like, this is just, we're just going to emulate. And I guess we talked about that, like, they didn't know what they wanted, but like, I
No,
don't, I just want to imagine the world in which they're like, I don't know how, how we start off a movie with like, okay, so Roger's dead.
Now I've got a very important question, and I'd hate to derail us, but it's the only time in the podcast I feel this is the most natural way I can jump from it. Do the demons fuck? Because
absolutely.
They
when
have to, right?
Azrael and Coulter are like, "Hey,
Making
you're
out like
yeah,
really
yeah."
horny when they're making out at the very end, yeah.
The monkey is just kind of like spooning the big snow cat's face, and it's I like went back a frame and was like, wait, what? I that it makes me so uncomfortable because they also include a fact that like you're not supposed to get very far from your demon at any times. So
Hmm.
like you're either fucking next to this like weird abomination to god of two interspecies coupling, or they're watching you. And I don't know which I hate more. Which would you guys rather have? Your soul demon fuck a different animal next to you, or watch you fuck?
Oh, I'd rather it fuck a different demon next to me. Like, please get a hobby, get something else that's entertaining you.
I mean, my
Aaron.
cats watch me fuck, so
Anyone with pets has had that experience. I think it's awkward. I would like them to like get some action themselves.
Yeah, but then I just imagine like accidentally like we both look over, you know what I mean? Like I make eye contact with my demon while we're both doing it, and that seems to be the worst of all the options.
So something really interesting. I am just deciding to have a greater conversation about demons rather than engaging too much with yours, because we all know I only really do what I want to do. And I want to talk about how Miss Coulter and Lord Asriel have demons that are of opposite genders, and how that wasn't really well explained in the movie, but has been much more explained or at least indicated at in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the world building, all demons are the opposite gender
Hmm.
of their person. Yeah, but it is, they do have a little bit more emphasis on demons in this one because like there are some bits where Pantalaimon disappears, but like there were whole stretches of the movie where Pan was just like completely forgotten, uh, which was a bad choice. So I do think it's nice that they add that bit of world building.
I definitely have to bring
Yeah.
this up as the podcast non-binary. I am genuinely curious what the author would do with that.
Yeah,
uh,
fantasy writers, free piece of advice, maybe don't make the gender binary what dictates anything. I had the same challenge with Wheel of Time,
mm-hmm.
um, and find it much more interesting of a storytelling if things are a little bit more random.
Oh, cool. My soul dictates the gender I have. Awesome.
Yeah, good. Congrats.
Okay, but what would your demon be?
I mean, I think that like all of us want to be like lion, but like
Oh no.
I would just have like a dumb looking pit bull as I do normally.
I'm looking at your profile picture and it is just a little pit bull.
Yeah.
So that
Just
makes sense.
not like a big tough pit bull, like a little house hippo, like a tiny little stubby little guy.
I would have a fish of some sort.
Oh
I would have to carry them around in a bowl.
Oh man, that's your Aquaman origin story.
Hmm.
no! Why am I imagining though, like you have a whale, so you have to like pull this giant tank everywhere you go?
I just run an aquarium and I never leave it.
God, could you imagine like that you go through your little ceremony where it picks its final form, but
Hmm.
beforehand it had always been like a mouse or like a ferret, and then
Hmm.
suddenly it
It
turns.
crushes my house, and I'm like, hey girl, we need
Thanks.
to work this out.
Aw.
Oh my God, why is that not right? Quick, copyright, copyright. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Michael, what's your demon?
Mine would 100% without a doubt be a red panda.
That's a good one. That kicks ass.
I could
Well,
see it.
they're just like wily and chaotic, and they're basically just like raccoons. And have you ever seen them trying to square up? So they think they can fight, so they stand up and put their hands up, and they're like 2 feet tall.
Now, Michael,
Yeah.
I think you might be a red panda. I think that your demon might be like an owl and trying to be like, what if we didn't though? Did you
That's true.
consider if we didn't?
Um, I do like the idea that if you have in this world, if your gender is different than the one it is assigned at birth, your demon also goes through a gender transition.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so, that's rough for my demon. They also have to come out.
or like maybe they're one of the animals that can change. Like you get a clam, or like a like an oyster, or
My
a sea
salmon has to
urchin.
swim a different direction.
Yeah. This is like shit. Hold on.
I like that Aaron's like only fish themed demons for this
I can
podcast.
maybe a frog. Are frogs can frogs change genders? I don't
Aaron,
know any.
I love how hard you're working to be like, this isn't transphobic.
I'm not. No. 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 I'm happy to call a lot of fantasy franchises from the '90s transphobic. Don't get me wrong.
All
I'm
of
just
them.
wondering. I'm just wondering if we could, harp on the world building a little bit more. But Michael, I think that you had a lot to say about the world building, so I'm interested in your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so this is an interesting world building setup and a challenge that I had with both the film and the show, in that you can have soft world building or hard world building. And so when I think of like your soft world building, I think of like Avatar: The Last Airbender or any sort of franchise that kind of like drops you in and like feeds you a little bit, but like uses a small setting and expands big. And then when I think of hard world building, I think of Lord of the Rings, which is like, here is just like a little story to get you into the world. And then as we go, we'll fill in blanks and like, add detail. And so soft world building tends to like tell you things as they become plot dependent. It's really good for like TV shows because you're able to kind of fill in story as you go along. Hard world building tends to make more sense when a book is like one contained story that spills over into several books. This feels like it didn't really want to do either. Like it so I'm going to contrast with the movie said, "Let's do hard world building and then not explain anything." And it was like, okay, cool. So we have no explanations and no answers. And this was like, what if we did soft world building, but we just kind of like sometimes told you things like 8 episodes in that you were like, oh, that was actually plot important 3 episodes ago. So I think we could all infer, for example, that the demons couldn't be separated, but that wasn't explained until like episode 6.
Yeah, like there's a weird bit where like Miss Coulter is like, "Hey, what are you doing, Lyra?" And Lyra's like, "Your demon was so far away from you. What's going on?" And like because they don't explain that, it made it seem like she received an intercision, which like in this did not get explained. It seems like maybe she did. I don't know. But like, yeah, I think it's a very very strange choice just to be retroactively explain why things are important. Like, there's no indication that when Roger gets intercisioned, he blows a hole in the universe. Like, but that just happens, and
Right.
it's fine. But like, it is a weird thing that I wish they had set up more.
Well, and even smaller than that, like the whole if demons die, then their humans die, that is not at all explained in the movie. And in the show, we get more of an indication about it, but I can't remember that they ever like spelled it out for us.
They show that like when humans die, demons die. Like when
Right.
like with Roger, his demon's gone. But yeah, I don't think they're ever just like, yeah, your demon is your weak point. You should keep them in a little cage, bulletproof cage at all times.
Right.
Real rough for the bug demon people.
Yeah,
Real rough.
Yeah, it's a bad
imagine having like a fucking fly as a demon and be like, God damn it.
fuck.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
fuck.
bye later.
I guess I've got a lifespan of about 3 years at most before someone kills you.
Well, and
Oh
so
boy.
this actually was one of the reasons that I said that I think the show was improved in its contrast with the movie because honestly, I was like, wow, what world building, how much more. And then when I stopped to think about it, I'm like, no, not really. Like, if I were contrasting this with other fantasy series I've watched and other fantasy series I've read, I give this one like a solid C on the world building. Like you're giving us things. You're giving us tons of interesting visuals and what you are giving us I'm very interested in, but you're not doing a good job getting there. The challenge is that the bar was so low because truly the golden compass was like I don't want to explain anything. The golden compass was the kid that was like I'm not doing homework. None. And his dark materials is like the slacker student that only does the homework that they find interesting.
I think that's a really good description of the two. I do want to just take a second and talk a little bit about like I th- I read a little bit about like what the fuck is going on with Coulter and her monkey because I it felt so much like they were setting something up that they just didn't. And a lot of people think that it's more of a storytelling technique than like a world building one.
Mm-hmm.
Because like as it says, like demons are your essence. So like they don't say that you can't get far away from your demon. They say that it hurts your demon a lot when they're far away from you, which is like there's an interesting difference between those two sentences. Uh which like implies something of like her being very comfortable hurting herself in order to get things done,
Mm-hmm.
which is even seen with her like punching the monkey, which sounds like a
Right.
euphemism. And so like I think there's something very interesting about the character there. I'm not smart enough to connect any dots further than that.
Well, I think you actually hit on something really smart because like a lot of Coulter's early characterization is characterized by her desire to obliterate herself in some way. Whether that's just like there's a scene where she is talking with Lyra and she's just like, yeah, I never could resist, could stem the urge to throw myself off buildings. And it's just like, oh, so that's what this lady's all about. And like, there's a lot of like you could read into like her constantly going into these relationships with men that will constantly just use her, and you could make a read that like that's a desire or a willingness to be hurt, and her only actual the times that she actually starts caring about things or people being hurt is when she sees Lyra in the big machine. So I think you're right, Josh. I think that's a really good read.
Yeah, there's
I
something like strangely like selfless villain about Miss Coulter, which I think is just a really interesting play here. And I don't know, I find that shade of villain to be maybe the most interesting because they aren't out for themselves, right? Like when you contrast it with Lyra's dad, it's very clear that he's kind of selfish.
kinda.
Like
I
the
really
most
like that.
selfish.
I like that contrast between Coulter being a villain who is evil because she has constantly neglected her own needs versus Azrael, who is extraordinarily selfish, and they both end up in the same place, which is like, if I am trying to either, if I make myself a god, as Azrael, almost explicitly says he wants to do at the end, or Miss Coulter says I live only, only to serve God or the authority or whatever. You both end up justifying whatever you want, which in this case is, murdering children. So
Can
like,
I
yeah, I like that.
can I go even like one step further with it of like examining the animals in which their demons took, of the
Hmm.
monkey a very communal creature, uh, compared to like I was like is like a snow leopard I think is
Yeah,
the
it's a snow
yeah, which
leopard.
is very solitary. Um, I want more of like that is what I wanted more of, like a dissection of what the demon, like more demon metaphor, because I think that that is such an interesting way to portray like characters' inner flaws and even like how they think of themselves. Um, but I don't know, so anytime I got that, I got very excited. But yeah, I think that's a really good take on world building. Um, I'm still thinking about how he just totally murdered that kid.
Yeah.
Um, I think maybe the boldest world building choice in this show was in its casting of one Lin Manuel Miranda, and I was
Okay,
hoping we could talk about that briefly.
yeah, we really.
And like,
Oh
listen,
my god.
Mr. Elliot has recently made an ass of himself over some comments
Yep.
about westerns, so like, I feel perfectly justified being like, you know what, maybe they did dodge a bullet here, but like, putting LMM in as like the quintessential American cowboy is an interesting choice, not because he's not a white person. I want to be explicitly clear, but because he's Lin fucking Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, I was so ready. If this podcast had come out on time, uh, just real quick, thank you, Michael, for saving me on this one. I would have sounded like the worst person ever because I was so ready to be like Sam Elliott is the only choice for this character. I can't believe they did this. If you want somebody who embodies cowboy spirit, that's where you gotta go. And boy, howdy was he upset the gay people existed. Oh my god! Sorry, he just came out and
Michael,
said
you're our
that there were
guardian
no.
angel. uh,
I
He
really
just
am. Everyone thinks I'm like this chaos monster, but actually there's a method here. I saw the future and instead of telling you about it, I was like, "Nope, let me just do my small part."
fuck your
Michael checked his
Mothman.
alethiometer and was like, is Sam Elliott gonna get canceled? Ah.
And
What?
it showed a Twitter bird, an X, and then a gay couple.
Oh no! Oh, I hate our world's version of the Alethiometer. It's just a lot of social media symbols.
Oh my god.
Christ.
Can you imagine looking at the West and going, I bet no dude's fucked out there. Not a single one of them. Anyway, I'm Sam Elliott.
I thought Lin Manuel was a weird choice just because he is so much like the Hamilton guy that like I could not divorce him from. I thought he was about to break into song at any point in time. Like his, his voice has such a quality that is so recognizable. Like even in this fucking British show, like he's doing like a weird American but like not even he's not even leaning into the cowboy accent. I'm not sure what his voice choices were here. But it just sounded like Lin Manuel Miranda had been plopped into this world, and I was baffled by it.
It's
Well,
wild
like,
'cause I thought the rest. Go ahead, sorry.
I have a fun fact for you.
Oh
There was
no!
one carryover from the original Golden Compass film to this.
Is it Lynn?
It was obviously Nicole Kidman's accent coach because he failed as much as she did.
Oh,
You can't
Christ.
fake Michael fun fact with us. That's a trusted, safe space.
Yes, I can, and I just did.
Oh no! You've torn the curtain.
Oh man.
The power of fun facts is now been violated. I can't believe you.
It's
So-
just absolutely buck wild because I thought the rest of the casting was superb. The young lady who plays Lyra is, I think, great at that role. You would also recognize her as the little girl from Logan who punched the shit out of Hugh Jackman. And like I think she crushed it. And then also there are a lot of Game of Thrones actors in here. One of which is the pirate that fell in love with a witch, which is a subplot that does not exist in the movie. And that dude, I don't have the actor's name right in front of me, but he played the captain of the Night's Watch when Jon Snow first went up there, Lord Mormont. And if I met him in real life, I would think I began an adventure of some kind. He is such a fucking his face and voice scream, I'm in a story. To watch him interact with fucking Hamilton it broke my brain. I couldn't connect those two. It felt like a fucking Fortnite video of watching Thanos fight Mark Zuckerberg. It was wild.
So, I can't believe I am going to bring this take on the podcast. I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought, there was some much needed levity. He brought it. His accent work was garbage. But, maybe it's just because I was expecting all the things that you just laid out to be my experience. But I was like, no, I'm willing to buy you as this character. It really didn't shatter the suspension of disbelief for me. I mean, I am of the mindset that if someone can't do an accent, then just rewrite the character. Don't try to force the accent. So that took me out of it a little bit. But I thought that he clearly had a good time as playing this cowboy character. Thought he did a pretty decent job doing it. Was not my choice for an Emmy in this show, but I think he did a good job. I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I'm saying my choice for Emmy, if I were making those decisions.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I think you're right, Michael. I mean, I personally could not separate the actor from the character, but I do think he was having a lot of fun, and he did a pretty good job as an actor. So listen, if I was as famous as Lin-Manuel Miranda and I was like, oh, here's a franchise that I love and I want to be a character in, I would absolutely do that, even if I was dog shit at it, because who cares?
Yeah, I can do a southern accent.
Yeah, I can do a southern accent.
Yippee! Get along.
History has its eyes on me.
You're not going to take away my shot.
Being in his Dark Materials.
I would have seen him do
Um,
Hamilton in that accent.
Christ. Speaking of Christ, Michael, do you want to talk about your last talking point, which is, of course, the ways in which this franchise, or at least this adaptation, failed to actually critique religion?
Yeah, like I had high hopes because the movie doesn't even talk about the church. Like at the very least in this series we do get like mentions of holy church. Like we understand that there is a religious bend here, so I do want to give credit where credit is due. And like yeah, the religious figures are clearly religious figures. But it just felt like every time we were getting anywhere near some sort of condemnation, like I'm even thinking like Miss Coulter's moment where she's talking about sin. I thought that was like one of the strongest scenes, but I thought we really stood on the edge, like the line of criticism of organized religion and the toxicity there and blind faith and dogma. And we looked down and took 3 steps back. And it was really disappointing. Like I don't know what the author has said about this versus, Golden Compass. I would imagine he's probably waiting to give his full thoughts until we get the full series. But I personally, if I made this series that was meant to be a critique and thought provoking and like really meant to start conversations, I would be a little disappointed that we're now 0 for 2 in any sort of real criticism. And I'm not hungry for condemnation. Like, I actually think that's kind of boring. Like, when they're like, actually, God is the bad guy and we need to kill God. Like, we've seen that story, fine. I'm more interested in what about humans make us crave hierarchy and lean on it even when it's toxic. But,
I
like,
mean, the closest we got to that was Lord Ezreal almost looking at the camera, going like, with a gun, "It's time to shoot God," which
huh,
would have been amazing. But even that is like the man who doesn't believe in God killing a kid. So
right.
like, I'm not saying that's a bad choice. I'm just saying that like, I agree. I never felt they really went after organized religion in any substantial way.
Yeah, we just don't see the church being evil, except for like some of the guys who work for the church stalking Will's mom. Like that's about as close as we get. But like other than that, it's just like, oh, we are told the magisterium is like oppressive and wants to control everybody, right? We see Lyra's line about how Coulter was cutting away demons to preserve sinless souls, but like again, when Coulter is the face of organized religion, like we don't really, it's not the same, right? She's not technically like a representative in the same way that like somebody wearing a collar would be. And
Right.
I agree that like it is a very whitewashed take.
Even when like the church is a lot of times actively upset with the decision she's making,
Yeah,
and I'm not, again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that like we're moving even further away from
Hmm.
saying anything substantial about organized religion once you do that.
Like,
I
I'm really empathetic to that choice because it's hard. What do you say? Right? Like, what do you say that's not been said? How do you not go too far? Where is the line in criticizing organized religion versus all religion versus religious people? Like, there are these messy knots to untangle. So I can understand why people would say, you know what? I've got 8 hours of content to make. I have a story to tell. I'm not getting near it. That's going to hold me up. But I think that's a bit of the feckless choice. Like, you could just kind of make that choice. That's what material you're adapting. And I don't know. Like, I find it remarkable that when the shows, the young pope and the new pope have stronger critique of religious dogma than his dark materials, I really struggle with that one.
yeah. I mean, I think that your instinct to talk about the ways in which organized religion, as a hierarchy exists and oppresses people is the way you should go if you're going to critique organized religion, especially the Catholic Church, which is basically what the magisterium is, right? The organized part is the part that's largely bad. And if you can, I'm sure that people have like things to say about that are interesting. But we just were mostly like, yeah, well, this one person and is slicing demons away, and the church supports her, but that's all we get, and it's pretty disappointing.
Right, and, like, then this whole, like, dust is sin, and so, like, what makes this world magical is somehow bad, and, like, I just kinda wish we got more of that from an actual religious figure, and kind of got not, like, I'm not interested in both sides in the magisterium, but I am interested to hear their thought process. Like, is it just, it says in our amended Bible, dust is sin? Or is it something more interesting and more thought provoking? Like, I don't think that we got a real, like, religious representative selling the case so much as we did, like, either people opposed to it or agents of it.
Yeah, I mean, like they tried to do that thing, which is like, where Azrael and Lyra are saying the line, and like Azrael says dust, and she says, the knowledge of good and evil, where he says knowledge
Hmm.
of good and dust, and it's like, okay, you know, there are ways in which the magisterium has censored stuff, but like again, coming way too late, and like if we are going to depict a religious hierarchy, we do need to see it on the screen, and
And
we
are we
don't need
gonna
to.
believe him? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Azrael, like is very clearly planning to murder a boy, right?
yeah.
Obviously, so like he's not exactly a most reliable narrator. Like you could be forgiven for being like, I mean, I guess the church did send in their cool paratroopers with their hawk demons, but like you know, they're not. We haven't seen any of them kill a kid, so like I don't know. I think you're right though. I think that we we really should have had like more of a central religious figure delivering some sort of exposition, or it is hard to do in storytelling, right? To be like, hey, your villain has to for whatever reason come face to face with your protagonist so they can have a they can show what they believe and contrast those beliefs. And like in this story, like I don't know that would have worked necessarily, but
Even,
you have to try.
like, I actually think we have more breadth for that visually than we do in, like, on a page as a book. Because you could just show a scene at the Magisterium with them talking to each other. Like, that's fine.
I think they did that in Golden Compass briefly,
Hmm.
and that kind of set it up. But yeah, like there were a lot of scenes of the interior of the Magisterium, but then again, it was just with what's his name, Boreal, being like, "I'm doing spy shit."
Yeah. And again, I just feel like it's a missed opportunity. That does bring me to a real fun fact about this series.
Oh,
So, if we know the church is representative of the Catholic Church,
yes.
do we know when they diverged?
Oh,
When what
ooh.
diverged?
When the Catholic Church, like, of our universe and the Magisterium diverged? Because there are some notable differences that we're seeing. First of all, the name, right? Like, calling it the Holy Church versus the Catholic Church is very important. Um, the Magisterium as an organization is very important. And we're missing someone if this is Catholic.
We're
Where's the
missing Martin
Pope?
Luther. Oh
Where's the
no,
Pope?
I wanted Martin Luther.
Oh, I thought you were
Where
gonna
is
say
he?
Mary.
Where is he? Where is that guy? Is he involved?
That's a good right. The central figure that is the religious guy who's handing down evil condemnations, or judging right and wrong, is not the Pope here. It's literally
No.
God. God
Right.
exists, and he lives in his ivory tower in the North Pole, and you know we have to murder him with a cool knife. And like again, if we don't see him, God doesn't exist in the first season of the show. Like,
Right.
uh, who are we going to be mad at? We can't just invent a guy. We have this lady and her monkey, but that's it.
What if I told you there were
Oh,
popes?
oh boy.
And a very, very important historical figure was the last pope.
Oh, let me think. Let me
Benedict?
think.
Is that
Benedict
your
the
guess?
Wait, hold on. Was the last pope based on Benedict? Is what I'm saying.
We don't know
So
Pope
the
Urban.
last
I
pope
think
is
this was
a
Crusade.
actual historical figure, like someone who existed, and that is where the Catholic Church diverged from the Holy Church.
Can I make a
Oh,
guess
okay.
about the historical? I can't remember the Pope, but I think this happened like right before the Great Schism, and I think because like no other types of Christianity seem to exist. So I think that this is like a Catholic retelling of yeah, Christians all got along before we split.
I I can't. I think it's Alexander the Sixth.
They were like, "That's enough out of you." No, it was a Mr. John Calvin, the
The
last
Pope,
pope.
Wait, hold on.
the the Calvinist guy.
Yep.
Huh.
John Calvin's a pope in this world?
Not only is he pope, he's the last pope.
That might be the most heretical thing in this fucking show.
Huh.
I mean,
I
just I just have this image of I'm gonna drop something in the chat. I just have an image of this little guy running around with his demon being like, "We need to reform the church," and them being like, "That's enough out of you," and then they're like, "No more popes."
and then a tiger
Huh.
kills someone.
Well, no, the tiger's his demon,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously.
yeah. God, that's
Hmm.
fucking wild. I cannot. I'm in shock. Uh, the only way it could have been funnier if it had been Pope Martin Luther.
I wish it was Pope.
No, it was very clear that the writer was like, "Okay, that's too obvious." John Calvin.
I mean, I don't know. They're both pretty on brand for being like, what's a religious figure that the Catholic Church doesn't like?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Me and the Catholic Church hating John Calvin.
Oh
John
God.
Calvin also hating John
Yeah.
Calvin.
God
God
also.
also.
Post your people who hate John Calvin holding hands memes to our Twitter, please.
If you hate John Calvin, like, comment, and subscribe.
All right. Well, um, I think that's enough. Unless we have any other points we want to hit, I think that's some pretty good analysis of his Dark Materials season one. I don't know if we'll do season two. That it seemed like it was a busy week for all of us. So we'll see. It is typically difficult for us to do things that are 8 hours long, but I definitely won't rule it out because I am interested to see what happens next. But
Yeah, I
we'll,
might
we'll we'll
just
figure
watch
that
it
out.
on my own.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Sometimes we
am
can do
going
things for fun.
I am going to say that it is, if I have any say, incredibly likely that we'll do season 2. It is not going to happen next week.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna give you all a
No,
break. Do we
never.
have any idea what we're doing next week?
We'll save that
I
after the cast.
All right,
yeah.
we'll figure that out later, folks. But I guess we should rate our experience watching his Dark Materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the low hanging fruit and give this one Dusty Boy.
I'm going to draw from my list of alternate popes and choose one Pope John Calvin.
Give it one Zwiggly.
I am going to give this 3 out of 5 Nicole Kidman bad accents because you know what? We got them even though we were bereft of Nicole Kidman, and it is a significantly higher rating than I gave The Golden Compass.
Oh, when we are not bemoaning the fact that Nicole Kidman wasn't in a particular media property, which we do basically every episode, where can we be found on the internet?
I'm at Green History on Twitter.
I'm at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
I'm at AaronSXL on Twitter, where I tweet about tabletop RPGs and health policy. I just released a review of the game Disc Masters by Ethan Reynolds, which is like if Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and Digimon all had kind of like a D20 grid-based system, which I think was very interesting and fun, and there's a lot of great art in there. If you're interested in tabletops, check that out. I do another podcast with my friend Layla at Mortified Pod. If you liked the first bit of his Dark Materials where they hang out in Oxford, perhaps check out our episode that just released on the Bone season, which also takes place in Oxford, except if it was alien concentration camp for humans. It's wild.
Oh shit.
Um, you can also listen to that's the other podcast that I do is this one.
You can
So
also listen to Bible
you
Boys.
could listen to Bible Boys. You could just
Have you tried it? It's so funny.
Oh,
We're
there's
Aaron,
a pretty big
demented.
backlog.
that actually, Aaron, I think that's a marketing opportunity we haven't quite gotten into, which is getting people in an endless loop. So from now on, I'm going to start saying an episode you guys should watch, and eventually, they're just going to keep watching forever. So right now, everybody, go watch Fire. We haven't done Fireproof. Fuck.
Yes.
Wait,
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we did.
have.
oh yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh
did.
god. Oh, we did do
That was
Fireproof.
the one with Kirk Cameron and he beats up his computer.
Yeah, the porn one. Go watch. Go watch Fireproof, y'all.
Yeah, it's wildly different than the Golden Compass.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with each other.
God. Well, if the fact that you didn't get enough computers getting thrown out of Windows did bring a tear to your eye, just remember that it is okay to cry because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.